With Rust's overwhelming surge in popularity, I thought I'd dust off Rust in my own Steam library and jump back on again. I've played Rust since it launched all the way back in 2013, but it's come a long way since then. So whether you played early like me and want a refresher, or you're entirely new to the game, this video is for you. I'll explain the basics of Rust, how to play, and how to get started on what's perhaps the most brutal beginning experience in multiplayer video games ever. Surviving your first night in Rust is like surviving your first night in Minecraft, except instead of dealing with creepers and zombies, you have naked spear-wielding maniacs and heavily armored players that look like they've just stepped out of Chernobyl. The truth is, in Rust you can die faster than you can dial emergency services. So you have to be quick-witted and enter with an action plan. Before we get into how you can survive the dangerous world of Rust, I should explain the basics of the game and how it all works. Don't worry, I've got timestamps so you can skip this part if you already understand the basics. Firstly, Rust is PC only for now, but it is coming to console very soon. An early 2021 release is possible. Let me explain what Rust is and how it all works. You start in the world with nothing but a rock. You can use this rock to gather wood and stone from nearby trees and stone nodes. You can also collect cloth from hemp plants. Use all of these raw materials to make a sleeping bag as a respawn point and a base to keep your most valuable supplies safe. As you collect more resources, you can create weapons, repair vehicle scraps nearby to get cars and helicopters, and fight it out against other players on the server. You can try to be friendly if you like, but that rarely works. Let's be friends. So that's the aim of Rust, survive in a world where the biggest threat is other players. There's a constant anxiety held over you because you never know when somebody could be lurking in the shadows waiting to take you down. Speaking of shadows, Rust does have a night and day system, so you'll need to plan ahead a little. And there's also a weather system, and different biomes have different temperatures. You'll need to create clothes to keep yourself warm in the snow and rip it all off to stay cool in the desert. Catching on to what Rust is all about now? Great, let's talk about how to get started. The most important thing about playing Rust and getting off to a good start is choosing a good server. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of active servers that all have players that are starting up, building bases and waging warfare on each other. As a new player, you should aim for a lower population server that has been wiped as recently as possible. It can be tempting to join a high population server in the hopes for more action, but trust me, you're not going to want it when starting off. A server with 30 players or less is a great starting point. Not only will there be less players online trying to spear you in the head and teabag your body as soon as you start, but resources will be widely available. On a server with hundreds of active players, stone nodes, hemp and food growing naturally on the ground become increasingly harder to find because everybody is taking everything before it can spawn again. So choose a quieter server. You can also find servers specifically for solos, duos and trios, and some with 2 times and 5 times harvesting speeds. These can be a good opportunity for a new player because you're not going to be hunted down by giant gangs of players. So you've chosen a great server. Now what? Well, the first thing to do is choose a place to set up. Don't even worry about collecting too many materials to begin with. People will try to kill you if they see you, even if you have nothing, and there's nothing worse as a new player than spending hours collecting wood and stone for it to be taken from you in seconds by a bored player wandering the coast. So head inland as quickly as possible because players only spawn at the coast. Also, if you see players, just keep running. Zigzag if they start shooting at you. They'll get bored eventually. If you try to interact with players, even if they seem friendly, they could snap and turn on you in any second and you've just wasted time or potential materials you've just collected. Just keep running until you've at least got a base set up. My biggest suggestion would be to head to the snow. It's cold there, so players only tend to go there once they've gotten enough cloth to create clothes, so you're not going to be contending with the armies of naked stone-wielding psychopaths scattered around the rest of the map. Along the way, collect as much hemp as you can and create a full set of burlap gear. If you see stone nodes, they look like this or this. Pick them up or mine them. Hit the shiny star to collect it faster. Trees are everywhere, but stone nodes are a lot rarer. Once you have your first stone node, get a bit of wood too and craft a basic hatchet and pickaxe. It will make collecting faster. Once you have enough cloth to make burlap stuff and basic tools, it's time to build your first base. You want to get up a base that is going to keep players out just long enough so you can get started with basic gear. Next, you need to build a building plan and a hammer. Equip the building plan to place down foundations. A 2x2 like this is good. Hold right click to change to walls and floors, and make sure to leave one space for a doorway piece as well. We'll worry about good base building in another video. Just learning to build a base to begin with is great because you'll get raided eventually. That's just part of Rust. Don't worry about trying to build an unraidable, undefeatable base straight from your first run. Just get the hang of the building element first, and if you want to play Rust for the long term, you have to drop that attachment to your base, because it could be blown up to smithereens the second you log off. Next, build a wooden door and a standard key lock. Create a tool cupboard and a sleeping bag too and place it in your base. When you put down the key lock, hold E on the lock to create a key. If you have friends, they're going to need that to open it. Otherwise, you can just open it for your friends and throw the key away. You'll always be able to open the door now. Home sweet home. Now that you've got that done, it's time to reinforce it. So next, you can use the hammer to upgrade your base walls. You can upgrade directly to wood or directly to stone. If there's a lot of stone in the area, I'd say just upgrade straight to stone because you're going to want to do that eventually anyway. You don't have to go to wood first. If there isn't stone in the area, definitely go for wood first because the default thatch walls break really easily. You now have your first home. Beautiful, ain't it? So now what? Well, the world of Rust is only just opening up to you. Remember to pay note of which quadrant your base is in so you don't forget. Now it's time to go get farming some more material. You can collect more rock nodes nearby that contain metal ore and sulfur ore. This is going to be useful for creating better weapons, tools, and base supplies. Keep collecting it, and along the way keep collecting as much stone and wood as you can too, along with hemp and food. Keep storing it in your base. Your base will decay over time, but if you put materials in the tool cupboard, it keeps your base alive and doubles up as a big storage box for materials. Each hour of stopping decay requires a certain amount of materials, and as your base gets bigger, you need more materials. To keep your other items, you'll need to craft a wooden box. So you've now built a base and got some supplies together. What next? Well, it's time to level up. I'm talking guns, body armor, crossbows, and more. But first, you should 100% get your base walls and everything in stone, and then log out. Yep, it's time to go visit the firing range. Type AIM into the server list and look for an arena or AIM training map. Get on there and play a bow game mode. Get to grips with the bow and arrow and how it works because you're not going to get enough practice in the actual game. Also, you can try the other gun game modes to see how assault rifles and everything work too. I'd say spend 10 to 20 minutes understanding the bow though, because the combat in Rust is brutal and very hard to get good at. However, a good bowman can take down pretty much anybody, so once you've gotten practice with the bow and you feel confident enough, you can go back to your server and craft your very first bow and arrows. Now that you have a weapon, you can continue to venture into the world and start collecting more supplies to slowly upgrade better gear. Your goal now should be to make a workbench, research bench, and a furnace. Workbenches let you craft better armor, gear, and building items, and furnaces let you smelt your mined ore into metal, useful for crafting better stuff. The research bench allows you to basically take apart any item and turn it into a blueprint to learn how to craft it yourself. To build a furnace, you'll need low-grade fuel. The way you're going to need to do this is go along the roads in Rust and look at these barrels. These barrels will contain scrap, some random items, some of which can be really good, and a lot of the time low-grade fuel. You'll need 50 of it. You can also craft it from animal fat and cloth. Speaking about animal fat, let's talk about the animals real quick. There's boars, bears, and wolves, and they're real scary and will probably mess you up. But you can deal with them if you kite them successfully and use the bow, and if you do kill them, they can be a great source of food, cloth, and animal fat, which can be used for the fuel. Chickens will also try and mess you up, funnily enough, but they're not a threat and can be a great source of food too. At this point, you just want to get a good foundation of wood, stone, metal ore, and sulfur, and keep looking out for that low-grade fuel along the road. The scrap you get can also be traded at traders for anything from basic supplies to weapons and even horses and helicopters, and you also need scrap to research blueprints. I did just say about horses and helicopters, let me just touch on that too. Your best bet early on is to keep an eye out for wild horses. You can jump straight on them and ride them if you see them, or you can go to a stable and buy them for 75 scrap. They'll really help speed things up as you travel around looking for stone, metal ore, and sulfur. When they start to slow down, it's probably because they're hungry. You can see the yellow energy bar getting smaller and smaller. You need to drop off the horse and drop food in front of them. They'll eat it. They can eat any food, even meat and pickles, and then their energy will come back. Once you have a workbench, a research bench, and a furnace, you can start to research better gear. If you want to explore most of the towns, you'll need a hazmat suit and have a workbench level 2. There's radiation there that kills you over time, but a hazmat suit will protect you. You can often find them on other players or sometimes find them in loot boxes, but they're rare. At this point, you're pretty much set up though, and what I like to do as a solo player is get involved in nearby fights and pick people off and take their gear back to base to build a collection of weapons and blueprints. Remember, anything you get can be researched and turned into a blueprint so you can craft it. So that should hopefully cover the basics. There's so much more to Rust, such as how to build better raid-proof bases, how to raid other players, how to fight AI enemies called scientists, and many other things. Maybe I'll cover that in another video. If this video was useful, do let me know. Make sure to like the video, it'd mean a lot, and I'll see you all in the comments. Cheerio!